Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 14th of February, 2024. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So a big day today, very exciting day today, a lot of things to get through. We have ETH going up in price, which, I'm not going to talk about that today. I spoke about that yesterday, and you guys will obviously be listening in or tuning in to the podcast I did with Eric when I released it on Saturday. But we also had Starkware announce the Starknet or Stark token airdrop today, which I'll be talking about, and just a bunch of other things as well. So I guess, without further ado, let's get into it. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was just a cast that I put out on Farcaster today that I've spoken about on the Refuel before, but it's all about, I guess, ETH staking generally and ETH node operating generally. So I put out this cast where I said, increasing the decentralization of the Ethereum network means increasing the number of node operators on the network. This means having individuals or groups running a full node with 1+ validators attached to it. You can either do this solo with 32 ETH, as a group with tech like distributed validator technology, or with a pool like Rocket Pool. Now, this is nothing new to you guys. I've discussed this extensively on the Refuel before, but I do think that the ETH staking ecosystem is undergoing significant changes right now. And I talked about this, I think, yesterday or the day before with regards to restaking changing the landscape and liquid restaking tokens changing the landscape. But when it comes to solo and home staking, that is also going through some pretty rapid changes here, because there are more and more solutions coming online. There's DVT, which went online recently, where you can have anywhere from 2 to 10 people, up to 10 people staking all at once. So essentially what would happen is that you each put if you have 10 people, you each put 3.2 ETH up to make that 32 ETH requirement, and then you all get to be a node operator. You all get to run the full nodes and validators on your local hardware or in the cloud, wherever you want to run it, really. But you all get to be a node operator here. There is obviously Rocket Pool, which has existed for a while. There are other pooling solutions coming online. There are other solutions from the likes of EtherFi and Puffer and Swell and all these other protocols coming online. So really, home staking and solo staking is just getting better and better as time goes on. And it's not going backwards, contrary to popular belief. As I've mentioned before, yes, solo stakers or home stakers may be a minority in terms of the amount of ETH staked, but they are pretty much the majority in terms of node operators, right? Rocket Pool has thousands of node operators. There are thousands of true solo stakers, I believe. I don't know the exact number there, but I think there has to be. Maybe there's hundreds, because if you include Rocket Pool node operators in the solo stakers, it would be in the thousands. But obviously, it's very hard to know. Very, very hard to know who's an active kind of node operator there. But I think we can safely say that there's potentially upwards of 10,000 plus node operators on the network right now, which is really exciting, obviously. And because of that, and because of the fact that the node operators are what really matters from a decentralization perspective on the network, we should be optimizing for that, and that's what we've been doing, which is really, really exciting. Now, last thing I'll say on this, because as I've said, I've talked about this a lot on the Refuel before, but I just figured it was worth kind of reiterating these points here. Last thing I'll say on this is something that Nolan V brought up in a reply to my cast, where he said, is it good to lower this 32 ETH requirement? Is it good to allow people to stake with, maybe just 1 ETH or something like that? And I'm like, and I've discussed this before on the Refuel as well, but I just want to refresh people's kind of memories here of this. So lowering the barriers to staking should be our number one goal as an ecosystem, but there is a limit to that. As I've discussed before, the limit is economic in that you can lower it to like 0.1 ETH. Let's just say you spin up a full node with, you become a node operator with 0.1 ETH. That includes running a full node and running a validator. Okay, 0.1 ETH right now is $270, right? So you first buy that ETH, then you buy the hardware. So you spend $400 on hardware or something like that. At best, it depends where you are in the world, but let's just say $400 on hardware, and then you earn like 3 to 4% from staking. To get back just the hardware cost would take you a very, very long time, because you're not earning much. 3 to 4% on $270, even if ETH goes 10x from here. 3% on $22,000, something like that, right? In the best possible case scenario for the foreseeable future, is still not that much, right? So when you look at it from kind of that perspective, not $22,000. I did my math wrong there. It's $2,200, right? So 3% on that is not that very much. So there is really a limit here to how low you can get the capital requirement barrier, but that shouldn't mean that we shouldn't lower it as much as possible. We definitely should, and obviously the calculus can change based on the USD price of ETH, but there is a limit there, right? And I think that the capital requirement is the number one barrier by far right now for stakers, for solo stakers, for home stakers. But then that'll eventually shift to the technical barrier as being number one, and then we can kind of focus on that and see what we can do in that regard. But we are doing that in parallel. We are focusing on that. We are improving it in parallel, but it's definitely not the main thing right now. The main thing is still that capital requirement there. So anyway, enough on that one. Just an actual related tweet here that ETHStaker put out today. There's a frequently asked question right now from home stakers, from people who run their own nodes. How much more disk space will your node need with blobs being added? So the maximum amount you will need is an extra 100 gig. So if you have a 2 terabyte drive right now, you should still be fine. And I know some people have been saying that their 2 terabyte drive fills up. That's because you need to be pruning your full node. You need to be pruning your execution layer full node, or you need to be running it in a mode that does auto pruning. That way, you're not going to be storing all of this unnecessary data, and it's not just going to be reaching that 2 terabyte limit there. But also at the same time, if you're someone who just wants as low maintenance as possible and you don't want to go through kind of pruning and things like that, then just run a 4 terabyte drive in there. I mean, a 4 terabyte drive is not that much more expensive than a 2 terabyte one, and the price is obviously coming down all the time. So you can run a 4 terabyte drive and not have to worry about this issue at all. But I mean, I run 2 terabyte drives on my solo box is 2 terabyte right now. And I think my Rocket Pool box is 2 terabyte. Oh, no, I think my Rocket Pool one's 4 terabyte. But my 2 terabyte solo one's fine. But there's nothing wrong with it. I'm running Nethermind on there with, I believe, a Lighthouse. I always forget which ones are running where. I need to check I got a little diagram that I've drawn up that kind of reminds me of what I'm running where, because sometimes I forget because I have so much going on. I'm running so many different kind of things here. But yeah, I mean, my 2 terabyte drive is fine. I mean, and I think it's going to be fine post Dencun. But yeah. It's about 103 gig max for blobs, because obviously blobs expire. They expire every 18 days, and the expected average is around 50 gig as well. So yeah, you should still be fine with a 2 terabyte drive there. All right, so ePBS has been a huge topic of discussion over the last few weeks in particular. You've seen a lot of core devs and researchers tweeting about this. I've talked about this a lot on the review and linked you guys a ton of resources for you to kind of, I guess, get up to speed with this stuff. Well, apparently there is a new ePBS breakout call that is happening. So the first one happened yesterday or today, I guess, depending where you are in the world. And Terrence has some notes here from that call. So if you are at all interested in kind of keeping up with the bleeding edge of ePBS research and development, these calls are probably what you're going to be maybe listening in on if they're public. I'm not sure if they're public. I'm basically reading these notes here from Terrence and others on what the calls actually entail, because ePBS, the reason why it's become, I think, such a I guess, like, loud issue now, or come to the forefront of Ethereum development now, is because I think the core devs are getting fed up with PBS existing outside of the core protocol, because it's just an annoyance for them to have to deal with. So I think they're just trying to enshrine it as fast as possible, so that it's easier for them to reason about. And I've talked about this before on the refuel, about how because MEV boosts, builders, and relayers exist outside of the core protocol, it is really annoying, especially the relays. It is really annoying for the core devs, because they have to monitor this sidecar software while not having any influence over it, or any direct influence over it, and not having any easy way to reason about it, because it's not part of the core protocol, right? It's not part of the core client software. It is a sidecar software. And the reason why they have to worry about it is because like 95% of the network runs MEV boost. So they want to enshrine it as quickly as possible. And enshrining it is also good from other kind of like lenses that you view this stuff from. But yeah, if you want to read the latest call, the notes on this latest call, I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, Tony has shared a cast on Firecaster today of a paper that has been published by him and a bunch of other Ethereum researchers on stealth addresses. So he says here, we introduce a standardized stealth address protocol for Ethereum called ERC 5564, enhancing privacy with unlinkable transactions. The paper was created in collaboration with these fine folks here, including Vitalik, of course. You can find a link to the ERC in the cast, which I'll link in the YouTube description below. But stealth addresses has been something that has been worked on for a little while now. And as Tony says here, it basically allows you to have unlinkable transactions. So you're not going to get like full-blown kind of maximum privacy default privacy across everything here. But the way this works is that it essentially, from a high level, allows you to unlink certain transactions from each other. So, at least from my understanding, you would basically be able to unlink trails of you trying to send ETH to a new address, for example. Like, say you've got an address that's doxed, say it's sassel.eth. Using this, you should be able to, at least from I might be wrong here, but this is from my understanding, I should be able to send ETH to another address without those addresses being linked. That would be really cool, because like right now I can't do that. Right now none of us can do that. The best you can do is use Tornado Cash, but like most of the people in crypto are barred from using Tornado Cash because if you're a US citizen or person, it is illegal for you to do that, and it is a very gray area depending where you are in the world for you to use that. And so most people just default to using centralized exchanges, where essentially what you do is you send ETH from your doxed address or from a known address to a centralized exchange, or you send a token or stablecoin. Then you wait a bit, and then you withdraw those funds from there to a new address. So obviously the centralized exchange can connect those addresses together, but it is very, very difficult for the everyday person to connect these things together. The on-chain analytics tools can do it relatively easily because they use a bunch of heuristics to kind of link these things. But yeah, I think Tornado Cash is still the gold standard as a mixer, but that's sanctioned right now. That is also not the be-all, end-all. We can do more than just Tornado Cash for preserving privacy here, and that's what Stealth addresses attempts to do. So if you want to read this paper, I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. Definitely something to keep an eye on here. All right, so biggest news from today, of course, is the announcement and the, I guess, like release of the details around the Starknet airdrop for the STRK or Stark token. Now, of course, you can check your eligibility at provisions.starknet.io. Please do not go to any links except that one, or any URLs except that one. I will link it in the YouTube description below. Please do not Google this or anything like that. Go to Starknet's Twitter and go to the link here, the official link, because obviously there's a lot of phishing going on right now. And if you haven't yet, please switch from MetaMask to Rabby, or please just use Rabby as your main desktop client, even if it's a pass-through for your hardware wallet. It is just so good. I've been using it so much since I got phished, and it's amazing. I love it so much. It's just such a beautiful experience, and it makes me feel so much safer on chain as well. But yeah, just wanted to give the shout out there. Now, onto the airdrop itself. This airdrop is pretty big. It is pretty big. You can see here, Bankless did a thread on this airdrop. So you can see here that more than 700 million Stark tokens are being allocated, which I believe is a huge chunk of the supply. I don't know what the total supply is of Stark right now, but I believe that this is a pretty huge chunk here. And then they've broken up this allocation in this pie chart that you can see, and allocated tokens to different users here, or different kind of like entities here. So one thing that sticks out here, which I was very happy to see, is that ETH stakers are 22% of the 700 million tokens. So they get 22% of these 700 million Stark tokens here, and that is the biggest allocation besides Starknet users. Obviously, Starknet users are going to be prioritized here, but that's 51% for Starknet users. Then you have Ethereum developers getting a nice chunk, EIP authors getting a nice chunk, the Protocol Guild getting a chunk, and then just open source developers and Starknet and StarkX users, of course, as well here. But what I really wanted to talk about was that allocation to ETH stakers. This has been something that I've been harping on a lot about for the last week, especially. I did say to you guys that I thought that there'd be a big project, or a relatively big project, that would do something like this, and that should start a trend. Now, obviously, Starknet's done this, but there's no trend yet because other projects haven't done it. But I really do hope that there is a trend being started here with this, because as I said yesterday and the day before, I think you want to be rewarding ETH stakers, and this isn't just solo stakers. This is also stakers through, I believe, Lido. I think it's like everyone pre-merge, from what I read. Is getting rewarded here. And as I said, you can check your allocations on the website that I'll link in the YouTube description below as part of the tweet. But yeah, I just really love to see this. Now, in saying that, I checked some of my addresses and it said they weren't eligible when they definitely were. And I believe they being Starknet, used the rated.network solo staker list for what they allocated Stark tokens to. Now, I think I discussed this yesterday or the day before, where I said that list is not great. There is a better list that I tweeted out about that had all of my addresses on it. It had full coverage, but these other addresses did not. Sorry, rated.network's list did not. So I think that what I'm going to try and do going forward, because the creator of that list that I showed you guys yesterday actually DM'd me on Twitter, and we kind of had a back and forth there. But basically, what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try and create a master list of solo and home stakers for projects to use. I don't want us to have multiple lists out there that projects are using, and I don't want us to have shitty lists either, because like multiple lists is already like a headache, but shitty lists is even worse because then people feel slighted, people get disappointed, people feel like upset, right? And you want to have as good of coverage as possible. Is the coverage ever going to be 100%? Probably not. Like that's going to be very, very difficult to do. Is it, if we can get it as close to 100% as possible, that's great. So I'm going to probably try to take this initiative on board. I already have no time in my life, but hey, what's another kind of thing to add to that pile there, and try to get a master list that projects use. And what I want to do with this master list as well is I want people to be able to attest to this list. So essentially what you could do is you could put this list on the Ethereum attestation service, and people can attest to it and basically say, okay, well, my address is on this list, and I am a solo staker, so I'm attesting to this. Projects can also attest to it and say, this is the list that we're going to use, if we do an airdrop, or we're going to use this list because this is the list that we agree is the right one and has full coverage, or has as best coverage as you can get, because we just do need that kind of like master list of solo and home stakers. And the second point would be to update that regularly as well, because obviously the one I showed yesterday was updated to September, and there's been a lot more validators coming online since then. Not sure how many solo validators have come online since then. It's hard to tell, but still, we do need a good list here. But in any case, the fact that Starknet, very big project within the Ethereum ecosystem, right? One of the biggest L2s has kind of fired the first shot here. I expect to see other projects follow suit. I'd be very, very surprised if projects like Eigenlayer, Puffer, Swell, and Ethify didn't airdrop some portion to solo stakers. Obviously, they're going to prioritize their own users in an airdrop, because that's just what you should be doing, honestly, because at the end of the day, your own users are the ones that you want to be rewarding the most. But I'd be surprised if they didn't do at least something there. And then outside of ETH stakers as well, obviously there's a protocol guild contribution here from Starknet, which I love to see. And I've personally taken it upon myself to contact projects that I know that I'm both invested in and not invested in, and basically asking them, hey, have you heard of the protocol guild? Have you heard of the protocol guild pledge, which is to pledge up to 1% of your token supply to the protocol guild when you launch your token? I have now gotten 2 projects on board by doing this, with 4 in the works, and I'm going to be getting more in the works. And I was speaking to actually Trent Van Epps about this today, and we kind of joked, because I was like to him, yeah, I'm going to like do this thing where I just reach out to projects and get them on board. And he's like, oh, we should have like a leaderboard. And I was thinking in my head, I'm like, that'd be nice, because like I think I'd be at the top of that leaderboard in terms of people, in terms of someone who had referred the most amount of projects to the Protocol Guild and got them to actually donate here. But at the same time, I'm not doing it for that. What I'm doing it for is trying to start the trends. The 2 trends I want to see is what I tweeted about the other day. I want to see every single project that hasn't done a token yet, that is going to do a token, allocate up to 1% of their total token supply to the Protocol Guild. Every single Ethereum project, right? I want to see that. And I want to see all of them reward ETH stakers. Doesn't have to be just solo stakers. Doesn't have to be just home stakers, can be stakers generally, but I want to see ETH stakers rewarded. Those are my 2 main missions going forward. I kind of think that those are the most impactful things I can be doing going forward, outside of the other stuff that I'm already doing, and I'm going to be kind of sticking to that there for the foreseeable future. So yeah, anyway, enough about that. You can go check out the eligibility criteria in Bankless's thread here for Stark. They've actually got a really great thread showcasing this, and basically what you had to do. There's a lot of eligibility criteria here, actually, because you could have used like Immutable X when they were kind of using StarkX, and you could have used Diversify, which is a StarkX kind of app as well, StarkX L2 as well. So there's a bunch of different criteria here. And it's all listed on the Bankless thread. So I'll just link that in the YouTube description below for you guys to go check out. But yeah, very, very exciting day for Ethereans, for ETH holders among us. As I said, ETH price is going up right now. I mean, at time of recording, it's at 2760-ish. We're very close to 3K. Like all of a sudden, we're at almost 3K when we were, not close to 2K not too long ago. And I did say to you guys that I thought that when ETH moves, it'll be a relatively quick move because too many people are sidelined right now. But as I said, I don't want to talk too much about the price here. But that's exciting. Stark airdrop's exciting. Plenty more airdrops coming this year for you guys. Like, there's so many projects that haven't done tokens yet that I'm sure you guys are kind of like farming airdrops for. And as I said, I hope that a lot of them get airdropped to ETH stakers as well, because I know a lot of you guys stake your ETH. So yeah, just a very good time, very exciting time to be an ETH holder and an Ethereum. And I can't wait to see what the, I guess, like rest of the year has in store for all of us. All right, so EIP 4844 is right around the corner, less than a month, or probably exactly a month from now, actually, or just a little bit under a month, based on where you are in the world, what kind of date it is there, until it goes live, until Denkun goes live. And we have Optimism here basically giving us a history lesson on EIP 4844 and basically how it came to be. Very, very short, and like how the development happened and what's going to be happening in a blob space world. So you can go give this a read. It's very short. I'll link this in the YouTube description below for you to read it here. But there's also a tweet thread from Off-Chain Labs talking about EIP 4844 and what it means for users on L2. And what I like about Off-Chain Labs' thread in particular is that they really focused on the fact that we don't actually know exactly what the cost savings are going to be for rollups using blobs, because of the fact that blobs are going to be a competitive market, just like Core Data is, just like Ethereum L1 block space is. There are things like inscriptions that could happen short term on blobs. There are a lot of other variables at play here with the fact that people could potentially arbitrage between core data and blobs. There is the fact that blobs can only be bought in like full batches, so you have to buy like one blob. You can't just buy a portion of a blob, at least from the protocol. But there are going to be extra protocol things where you can actually buy portions of a blob, and it depends on how frequently each rollup is buying blobs. So there is a lot of kind of like variables here, and we're just not going to know until blobs go live. Now, as I've told you guys before, once blobs go live, we're going to have to wait a little while. We're not going to have good data within like the first week. We're going to have to wait, maybe 2-3 months or something to get some really kind of like good data that has a lot of signal and not too much noise in it, because I do think that we're going to see some kind of degen project say, hey, we're doing inscriptions in blobs. Maybe they're just called blobscriptions. And oh my God, I just came up with that. And if someone uses that, I'm sorry, because I don't know if some kind of like degen project is going to use that terminology, but it's out there now. But yeah, I can imagine some project coming along and being like, hey, we're blobscriptions, and it's really cheap to do this on ETH L1, and they're not going to maybe inform their users that blobs expire after 18 days, so it's literally useless to be putting inscriptions in blobs. But I just think that the degen kind of energy runs deep, especially as the market gets hotter and hotter, so we could potentially see that. Now, again, that's only going to be over the short term. It is not going to be, in my opinion, a long-term issue. I do think that the rollups are obviously going to crowd out this stuff anyway, because they can afford to outbid everyone, because their rollup is basically thousands, tens of thousands of users, transactions all kind of rolled up into one. So they're definitely the biggest players on in the blob space market. But we're gonna have to wait. I'm gonna give it at least like 3 months to get some decent data, and I'm sure the L2 teams are going to do their own retrospectives on these things. They're going to do their own analysis on these things, but it's going to be exciting to see how it goes there. But yeah, anyway, you can go read Optimism's post and Off-Chain Labs' tweet thread. I'll link them in the YouTube description below for you to do so. Now, I know you guys are waiting until Saturday for me to publish the episode I did with Eric Connor on the ETH bull case and why ETH is going to 15 to 20K, but as a teaser, I'm going to spend the last few minutes of today's episode going through some of the stuff we spoke about and just giving like a little teaser here. And the reason I'm doing this is because Eric posted a tweet today saying upcoming ETH bullish narratives. Of course, we have the ETF, right? The spot ETH ETFs, which I've spoken about extensively on the Refuel. And I've spoken about the fact that I believe they're going to be approved in May of this year, which is not very far away from now. Then he lists Larry Fink. Obviously, Larry Fink is the CEO or the current CEO of BlackRock, the largest asset manager in the world. Larry Fink doesn't miss, guys. Honestly, I don't think crypto natives realize just how much power that dude has. Especially political power, which means a lot more than people give it credit for. So I think that Larry Fink don't miss, which means that we're going to get those ETH ETFs by May. Supply shrink. Obviously, ETH has been deflationary since the merge. There is just more and more supply coming off the market because it's going into like staking. It needs to be used to pay gas fees, which just makes ETH deflationary. More people are using ETH as a store of value, as a money. There's just not enough ETH to go around. Sound moneyness, the fact that ETH supply is dwindling, is shrinking. ETH is used as money so much. ETH is a collateral asset. It's a store of value, just increases its moneyness. Restaking, obviously a new primitive, wasn't around in other bull markets, has grown just so large at this stage. Eigenlayer is one of the biggest projects now on Ethereum in terms of TVL. Data blobs, as I just discussed, blobs are a huge unlock for rollups. Airdrops generally, I mean, we just saw the first one today with Starknet, many, many more to come. An ossified proof of stake chain. And then he said, upcoming ETH bearish narratives, nothing. Now, the funny thing is, I agree with everything on his list except ossified proof of stake chain. I do want to put this out there. The proof of stake chain on Ethereum is nowhere near ossified, and it is going to change a lot over the coming years. There is a lot of stuff that the core developers and researchers want to do to the proof of stake chain to make it a lot better than what it is today. And the reason for this is because the proof of stake chain honestly exists as a miracle, if I'm being honest. It was developed as a separate chain, obviously as the beacon chain, before long before we knew that we knew it would merge, but like long before it was merged, right? It launched December 1st 2020, and then it merged September 15th 2023, so it was a long time between those periods there. But the reason why I'm saying it's not going to be ossified anytime soon is because there are tons of upgrades coming, and there's this pretty substantial upgrades, right? There's single slot finality. That's a pretty substantial upgrade to the way that Ethereum proof of stake works. There's the max effective balance increase coming. There's the stuff around PBS as well. So yeah, the beacon chain or the proof of stake chain on Ethereum is not ossifying anytime soon. I think that what Eric maybe meant here, or what he kind of like hopes, is that the ossification comes in the form of confidence in the proof of stake mechanism, because the core mechanisms themselves aren't necessarily going to change. They're just going to become, well, they're not going to change for the worse, so to speak. They're just going to become stronger. It's not going to be like a whole rewrite, at least from my understanding on things, but it's going to become stronger with things like single slot finality and so on and so forth. But yeah, there's plenty of upgrades still coming to the proof of stake chain, which in my opinion is just way more bullish than an ossified chain, right? And obviously more ETH is going to get staked as well, which kind of which plays into that and plays into the whole restaking thing. But that there is just a teaser of what we spoke about on the episode, which again, as I said, is going out on Saturday. Gonna keep you guys waiting for that. And the reason I'm doing that is because I don't want to cannibalize the refuel. I don't want like to put the refuel out and the episode out at the same time. And I want to give you guys something to be bullish about on the weekend on Saturday, because it does seem like the market is beginning to trade more and more in lockstep with the TradFi markets, because the TradFi markets have, in the US at least, have defined kind of like opening and closing periods. And because of the BTC ETF, those things are only traded during those periods. And then obviously a lot of the TradFi folks that are playing in that, but also are able to access crypto native markets, are playing there as well. So, given that, I do think that the weekends are probably going to be quieter than they usually are in the ecosystem from at least market perspective. And yeah, I'm just going to give you guys something to be bullish about on Saturday. And I mean, I usually put the drive-throughs out on Saturdays anyway, so that's not a thing there. We just recorded on the Tuesday because it was the only time you could find to record, because Eric, I think, is busy for the rest of the week. So we really just wanted to record on the day that we were both free and able to do it, even if it was too early there. But hey, hopefully the episode lives up to all the hype, honestly, because I'm hyping this up as something, as something massive. But really, I came away from the podcast more bullish than I'd been in a very, very long time. And you guys know I'm like perma bullish on ETH and probably the biggest ETH bull in the world. But I came away from the episode being like, oh boy, I need to buy more ETH. And I honestly, guys, like I have like such little money left to buy ETH with, because I've just been buying it so much during the bear and crab market. And I do other things like angel investments and stuff like that. But I came away from it and I'm just like, can I find some money somewhere? Can I like rotate some money from somewhere else to buy more ETH? Like I'm too bullish right now, right? So yeah, anyway, enough on that. I'm rambling now. Enough on that. I think that's going to be it for today's episode. So thank everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.